Mark Wahlberg's appearance on The View was supposed to be a celebration, an opportunity to promote his latest film, and open up about his personal journey from troubled beginnings to spiritual awakening. But within minutes of sitting down at the table, it became clear that this would not be a typical Hollywood interview. What unfolded next wasn't just a heated exchange, it was a cultural lightning strike that would divide viewers across the country. The segment started off light, with Mark joking about his early film career and sharing stories of discipline from his Catholic upbringing. But the moment Behar questioned the sincerity of his faith and redemption narrative, the conversation turned electric. Wahlberg, who has worked tirelessly to reshape his public image, was not prepared to be grilled live on air in a way that felt more like a courtroom than a talk show. And as the tension built between Joy's sharp skepticism and Mark's quiet but growing indignation, the temperature in the room rose until the only possible conclusion was an explosive exit that left the audience and co-hosts in stunned silence. Things began to go off track when Joy asked about Mark's past, specifically his violent criminal history and whether he truly felt accountable for it. Mark, who has publicly spoken about his early run-ins with the law, answered candidly. "I've made mistakes I'll never stop trying to make amends for," he said. "But I believe in growth. I believe in God. I believe people can change." But Joy pressed further. "Do you think promoting faith as a brand now erases what you did before?" Her tone wasn't accusatory, but it wasn't soft either. Mark's posture stiffened. "I'm not promoting faith as a brand," he replied. "I'm living my life. I don't hide from what I've done. I own it every day." The audience applauded, but Joy didn't back down. "But don't you think it's convenient to find God after you've made millions, cleaned up, and now have something to sell?" That struck a nerve. Mark's face hardened, and a heavy silence followed. Sonny Hostin shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi Goldberg tried to jump in to steer the conversation away, but it was already too late. Mark looked Joy directly in the eyes. "Faith isn't convenient," he said firmly. "It's hard. It's constant work. It's sacrifice. It's discipline. I didn't find God because it looked good. I found him because I had nothing left." Joy leaned back, unimpressed. "But now you're here selling a faith-based movie while avoiding the tougher questions. People have a right to ask whether that's authentic or just a good marketing angle." Mark's tone grew sharper. "I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to tell the truth. If you don't want to hear it, that's on you." The audience gasped. Whoopi raised her hands and tried to de-escalate, but Joy doubled down. "Truth without accountability isn't truth, Mark. It's performance. You say you've changed, but some people might think you just changed the narrative." Mark was visibly angry now. "You don't know me, you don't know what I've sacrificed, and you don't get to decide whether my faith is real." The air grew thick with tension. No one at the table dared to speak. The crowd sat in dead silence, the cameras catching every twitch, every pause. What came next felt inevitable. Mark slowly removed his microphone, stood up and said, "If I came here to be judged and attacked instead of heard, I'm done." Joy, with a slight smirk, responded, "No one's judging. We're just asking the questions your PR team probably told us not to." Mark shot back, "Maybe the problem is you think faith means weakness. But it takes strength to own your past and still show up with hope." The audience gasped again, several people applauding nervously. Whoopi looked toward the producers as Sarah N. tried to change the subject with a clumsy segue about Boston. But Mark was already walking off stage. Tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The co-hosts sat there in stunned disbelief. The camera awkwardly cut to a commercial break, but the damage was done. What was supposed to be a 10-minute interview turned into the most controversial walk-off in the show's recent history, and it didn't take long for the unedited clip to surface online, spreading like wildfire. Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags like #WahlbergWalkOff, #ViewMeltdown, and #FaithUnderFire began trending worldwide. Supporters rushed to Mark's defense, calling Joy's questions disrespectful, condescending, and a cheap shot. Fans flooded comment sections with messages of support, while others praised Joy for holding a celebrity accountable. One user wrote, Wahlberg didn't walk off because he was offended. He walked off because he wasn't allowed to speak without being accused. Another replied, "If you're going to cash in on faith, be ready to answer for it." The divide was sharp and immediate. Even other celebrities weighed in. Mario Lopez tweeted, "I've known Mark for years. What you saw was a man tired of being boxed into his past. Faith is real. Respect it." Meanwhile, outspoken atheist pundits defended joy, arguing that redemption narratives deserve scrutiny, especially when paired with financial gain. Overnight, the confrontation became more than just a clash of personalities, became a referendum on redemption, belief, and the public's right to challenge celebrity transformations. ABC released a carefully worded statement later that evening. The View prides itself on fostering challenging and respectful conversations. We regret that today's segment did not proceed as intended. Behind the scenes, however, sources described chaos. Producers were reportedly furious that the interview had gone off the rails so quickly, and insiders hinted that Mark's team had requested a pre-approved list of topics which Joy allegedly ignored. Joy, on the next day's episode, stood by her approach. "When someone comes on this show claiming to have changed, we're going to ask how. It's not judgment, it's journalism." Her tone was unapologetic, and the studio audience applauded her bravery. But it was clear that not everyone on the panel felt comfortable with what had happened. Sunny Hostin remarked, "There's a difference between a hard question and a hostile one." Whoopi remained mostly silent, a rare signal that even she might have felt the situation had gone too far. Meanwhile, Mark stayed quiet, his silence speaking louder than any post-show interview ever could. Days later, Mark released a brief Instagram video, dressed casually, standing in his backyard. He looked directly into the camera and said, "I didn't walk off because I was angry. I walked off because some people aren't interested in listening. They're only interested in tearing others down. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. And if that's not good enough for some folks, that's okay. I'll keep trying anyway." The video garnered millions of views, with comments filled with messages of solidarity, including many from people who shared similar stories of redemption. Pastors, recovering addicts, and veterans all posted about how Mark's journey gave them hope and how the exchange on The View reminded them of the daily skepticism they face. The moment had transcended TV drama. It had become deeply personal for many. Critics called it PR spin, but for those who saw themselves in Mark's struggle, it was validation. It wasn't about Hollywood anymore. It was about something far more real, the battle to change, the resistance that change so often meets. The clash reignited long-standing questions about The View's tone and purpose. Was the show a space for real dialogue, or had it become a battleground where guests were ambushed for ratings? Critics argued that the panel's confrontational style, especially Joy's, too often turned personal, crossing the line between tough journalism and public shaming. Supporters, however, praised Joy's fearlessness, saying she asked what others were afraid too. But even neutral observers acknowledged that something had shifted. Wahlberg's walkout had opened a wound. Other guests began rethinking their appearances. At least 2 upcoming celebrity interviews were reportedly postponed or rescheduled following the incident. With publicists wary of walking into the same situation, internally, ABC began discussions about tightening segment guidelines, and whispers of Joy's unchecked behavior started circulating with renewed intensity. But Joy remained unfazed, tweeting, "We ask questions. That's what we do. If you can't answer them, maybe don't show up." Her defenders called it bold. Her critics called it bullying. Mark's film, ironically, saw a surge in interest following the incident. Streaming platforms reported increased viewership and ticket sales for special screenings doubled within a week. Faith-based communities rallied around the actor, organizing group discussions and sermons based on the themes of the movie and the controversy that followed. Church bulletins, podcasts, and blogs all tapped into the moment, framing Mark's treatment as a symbol of how modern culture treats faith not with curiosity, but with suspicion. Even those outside religious circles began re-examining how quick media can be to judge those trying to change. It wasn't about defending everything Mark had ever done, it was about acknowledging the courage it takes to grow. And whether Joy's challenge was fair or not, the overwhelming public response suggested that people are still hungry for stories of transformation, not just takedowns. Mark had come to promote a film, but he'd ended up exposing a much deeper societal fracture.